The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to our webinar this afternoon. My name is Maggie Blay. I'm one of the counselors here, and I'm happy to introduce Lynn McClanahan, who is a wonderful counselor and a great speaker here in Portland. She has done a lot of work for us, and she's going to be talking to us about stress management. So take it away, Lynn.
Thanks, Maggie. It's great to be here, and our focus today is work-life balance. So we are going to be doing some talking about both our stressors in our work life, but also our home life as well. It's a broad topic, but we'll do our best, and I do welcome you all here. Today's objectives will be looking first at just the basics of what do we mean by stress? What is stress? And then it's important to also recognize the stressors in your life and our lives, as well as getting some suggestions and tools on how to respond to those stressors, what you might need, what we need to do to cope effectively, and how do I balance work and family, and what do we mean when we talk about resiliency? So again, it's a lot of topics in a short period of time, and but we hope to have some information that will be valuable during this hour. When we talk about stress, a basic definition is that stress is the reaction of your body to the demand placed on it. Hans Selye, we can recognize as the sort of the founder or who named or defined the term stress, and his definition is the nonspecific response of the body to any demand for change. An easy definition of stress is stress equals change. Change equals stress. We really do look at how our body, both physically and emotionally, responds to the stressors in our life. Our stress response covers, again, physical and emotional. The stressor occurs, whether again home or work, and we have a nervous system and brain reaction, as well as adrenal and pituitary glands producing the stress chemicals, sort of like an adrenaline certainly being one of those. And these stimulate protective bodily reactions, and you become physically and psychologically ready for action. This stress response was really helpful during the caveman days. If you have a tiger or dinosaur running your direction, you have the choice of fighting or fleeing. And that's another basic definition of stress, is the fight or flight response of our body and emotions to any source of stress. Right now, when we talk about stressors, we kind of are talking about our more daily life stressors, and which we will be reviewing, but it's not usually the major events, though those certainly come up, but it's also kind of the chronic and ongoing cumulative stress that we'll be discussing as well. And how much change is too much? There's not an answer to this question, but we do know that change, as we mentioned, can dramatically impact our stress level, even those small changes that happen on a daily basis. Bigger ones that are noted here are certainly more dramatic responses. The death of a spouse or family member, when we go through a change like a end of a relationship, retirement, pregnancy, career change. The other thing to remember about stress is it's not a matter of whether there's positive or negative events that produce the stress. Even those happy occasions, planning for a vacation, having your first grandchild being born, those happy events can also produce their share of stress response as well. And as we talked about, other stressors more on a daily life way are the little things. Waiting in lines, being on hold, which we've all been through, having, pet peeves like your food coming out cold, just some of those little things that often affect us more, especially if we've had sort of some cumulative stressors in our life, or again those big events. So that idea where you end up feeling like you're on edge or short-tempered, and why am I behaving this way? Usually it is because of a kind of, oftentimes it's due to cumulative stress, and those little pet peeves will really start getting to you. Environmental stressors, noises, clutter, busyness, having difficulty finding parking, those little things, or a workspace where you sit too close to the coworker next to you, or again, people that you work with or live with that you have to be aware of what their emotional responses are, and that can be a source of stress as well. Social, family, friends, job are all examples of stressors. The basic thing on all of this is that our interpretation of these things ultimately decides how much stress they cause us. It is not the event itself that causes that stress response. It's how we view it, how we perceive it, which is results in the reaction that we have. So we'll be focusing a lot of on that because if we focus on what we have control over, it will be more effective. One of the main sources of stress is focusing too much on what we don't have control over. So keeping that in mind is important. Catching stress early is the most helpful, and the way we catch our stress response is that we pay more attention to those early physical responses. It might be noting that you're having difficulty with breathing, or you might, without even being aware of it, be holding your breath. We all do that. It'll be kind of like when I see a client, for instance, and even in a session, I'll be saying, slow down a minute. Why don't you take a breath? And then it's kind of an awareness of, oh, yes, I've been holding a breath. And we'll be talking more about simple things around those ways that our body does its natural responses. Digestive disorders, some people have the stress that will result in just a stirred up stomach or the butterfly feeling. Tension in our back or neck muscles can result in back and neck pain, of course, low back pain, headaches if we let that stress, the tightness in our neck go on for a while, or the TMJ with the clenched teeth that happens where we may not even be aware of it, can result in the headaches. Skin rashes, elevated blood pressure, fatigue, and an increased susceptibility to illness. All of these are some physical effects and signs of stress. And again, catching things early before that headache becomes a more major, or the stomach disruption becomes a more major problem. We do know that even if stress does not cause necessarily the illness or cause major physical diseases, it is a contributor, and if we are kind of letting our bodies get worn down by the stressors in our life, that can result in more major difficulties. And emotional, paying attention to the emotional responses. You know, depression is a common and very serious issue with many people, and that's one that kind of, if we kind of are more aware of sadness and taking a look at the things that are happening in our lives, and then and the other thing to be certainly aware of is, and reminded of, is that depression is a treatable emotional illness, and it might be a early or ongoing signal that it's important to be able to talk with someone about that. Other emotional reactions can be fear, anxiety, worry. These days there's a lot of contributors to and causes that we can point to that can have us feeling worried or anxious. Feelings of being worthless or hopeless, feelings of being hopeless, loneliness, feeling overwhelmed or feeling overworked, as well as defensiveness and frustration. So kind of being kind of aware for yourself, but I think the other thing for each other is kind of like, you know, just having some patience for our own responses, as well as coworkers or family members who may also be experiencing these effects of stress. Behavioral examples also include having problems with sleep, difficulty falling asleep, or difficulty staying asleep. one of the signs of depression is kind of waking up after you've fallen asleep, oftentimes like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. That can also be, due to anxiety or worries in people's lives. Changes in appetite, either direction, either kind of overeating, the comfort food, feeling better, thinking we're soothing ourselves by kind of, with awareness or unawareness, we're kind of eating more and we're gaining some weight, or not being stressed and feeling like we don't have an appetite. Some changes in relationships can come if we're not paying attention. Again, that shortness or irritability can affect the people around you. Work-wise, it can result in lower productivity. The things that are more visible are things like crying, anger outbursts, or just withdrawal. And again, that can also, all these things can contribute to an increase in accidents or errors at work, or also if we're not paying attention, things that are more serious. If we're distracted driving home, or we're worrying as we cross the street, we just need to kind of be more aware and be in the present as much as possible to kind of decrease those behavioral responses. Difficulty concentrating is certainly another aspect of and an example of a stress response. All of these are normal. This is not saying that, and we all have none of us are immune to stress, and it's just a difference in how people respond to it and the degree of the stressors in their life and the degree of their personal resiliency, which we'll be talking about, and how they handle those stressors. We all have basic needs, and so we start with that, like the food, shelter, clothing idea is in our examples of our basic needs. So even though those sound so simple, but it's some things that kind of just like saying, yes, let me make sure that those things are in place, because the things that become more, can be more challenging sometimes to remember to pay attention to is our basic needs, such as control. Again, if we focus on what we don't have control over, that can be a source of stress. Basic needs also include challenge. We can have, when we talk about stress and reactions to stress and how stress can be caused by positive events as well as negative events, in the same regard, too little stress or it can be a problem as well as too much stress in terms of we need challenge in our life. We want to have things that motivate us. We like to have things we're interested in and enthusiastic about. Those are the things that are the basic, also are part of basic needs. Challenge, competency, feeling like we can do a good job at what we do. Support, basic needs would be like, what kind of support do we have? Friends, family members. If you actually, people who do have sought out counseling in the past, spiritual, certainly a church support, that's on the basic needs. Appreciation, we do like to be acknowledged for what we do, and acceptance, both of ourselves, acceptance for ourselves as well as acceptance from other people. Self-growth, we need to kind of have new challenges in our life on a personal level, not just a work level. Feedback, just kind of having a, how are you doing and who's going to give you the most honest feedback. Recognition, again, doing a job well done or being a good parent. Friendships are important. Self-time, we often don't take enough of this. It's okay to say, I need time to myself. And it's hard when we talk about balancing work and family to find that time, and we'll kind of explore some ideas for that. And then also love. So those are all fall under the basic category of basic needs. When we talk about, when I mentioned the idea of it's not the stressor itself that produces the stress response, that one of the things that is really what causes stress is our self-defeating thoughts. So again, how we view a situation, how we interpret an event can really influence how we respond to it. And we're all full of a lot of shoulds, have-tos, supposed-tos, and got-tos. So examples of that include life should be fair. I must be perfect. I'm not supposed to feel that way. I shouldn't show any weakness. It if I can't do it right, it won't be good. Those are strong examples, or classic examples of self-defeating thoughts. Another way to look at it, so being very careful of the shoulds, oughts, and musts, and instead kind of looking more at using the self-talk, which would be, I would like, and I wish things would be different, or I want to improve or make changes in this way. So kind of changing your should to be more wants. I will do my best. I'm a human being. I mean, I'm not perfect. I'm not supposed to feel that way. I feel that way, and my feelings are valid. So kind of backing away from those shoulds and musts and switching your self-talk over to be more reasonable and realistic for yourselves, for ourselves. How do I manage stress? Successfully coping with life stressors starts with your ability to ask the questions and reinterpret the situation. So we're going to take some minutes kind of moving into looking at work and home pressures. And again, with that basic idea of focusing on what is within our control. So we can start with examining work and home pressures. Is there really too much to do in too little time? Or is it your expectations, our expectations, or self-imposed perfection? Do you really need to do most of the work yourself, or is it an unreasonable expectation? So kind of the key words to kind of pay attention to when we talk about the unrealistic or irrational beliefs would be being aware of both our shoulds and musts, and also our overgeneralizing words. I'm always the one who has to do this. No one helps me. Life will always be that way. So kind of being aware of the overgeneralizing words, and again, bringing that down to a more reasonable level of, right now it feels like I'm doing a lot of work, but I'm not doing everything. Right now it feels that I'm alone and don't have a lot of support. But I know that I do have these couple friends, and I have good support from these family members in my life. So kind of bringing it back to looking at what is the more realistic and reasonable view of our situations. And I want to do take a couple minutes right now in terms of, again, focusing on what's within our control, and just thinking about work, for starters, of how do we take care of ourselves when we have options in our work situation. So I'm going to ask you this polling question. Do you take a lunch break? And that may seem like a basic question, but it's amazing how many people, and that many of us do get caught into saying there's not enough time to do this, and I'm just going to eat lunch at my desk. So there's two questions that I'm going to tag to this polling question. Do you take a lunch break is the first one. So take a few minutes and just write your answers to that polling question. And this gives us a chance to also say, yeah, how are other people responding? What do they do in their work day? Sometimes I think we all make ourselves feel like we're the only ones, and only I have too much work to do, and I don't have time to take a lunch break. A lunch break is one of the basic things that is most helpful. Not only does it helps us be more productive when we are at work. Not only does it, again, provide us with a break during the day, but also we need that kind of the nutritional, again, basic needs of food. So, and it can also, when we take lunch with others, that can also be an opportunity for socialization with our coworkers. So, are the answers to the polling question?
So it looks like we have 55% yes and 45% no.
So that's pretty even split. So 55% yes, where you actually take a lunch break, but 45% don't even take a lunch break. And again, that is something that can be done, and I and I want to encourage you to be saying, yes, it's important for me to take this break, and I will be able to be more productive in the afternoon if I take that break. The second part of this question is those of you who do take lunch, how many take your lunch break away from your desk? And if we could take a couple minutes with that polling question, just to see how others, what we all do. Do you take your lunch break away from your desk? We'll take a couple minutes, see if people are responding to that. Some of the advantages, it seems like a simple question, and people may say, yeah, I take a lunch break, but I don't take it away from my desk because we don't have much space at our workplace for taking lunch away from the desk, whatever the reasons. But a lunch break that's away from your desk, when weather gets better, or even in our nice days during this untraditional winter that we're having in Portland, not only taking a break or a lunch break away from your desk, but encourage you to kind of even get out of the building and use that opportunity or that time for an oxygen break, so to speak, where you get away from work itself for a short period of time. So kind of looking to see if there's answers to this polling question about taking your lunch away from your desk.
So 55% of the people do not take lunch away from their desk.
55% don't take it away from their lunch.
45% do.
Oh, good. That's, again, a pretty even split. So I would encourage you to kind of see that you have some examples out there of people who take a lunch break away from your desk. And again, as the weather improves, I want to encourage you to do more of that as well. And now we're going to move a little bit to coping suggestions at home. When we talk about too much to do and too little time and self-imposed perfection, and do you need to do most of the work yourself, or is it an unreasonable expectation? And we gave the example for taking lunch breaks at work, but at home, it's also worth looking at how is that work shared and how do each of you handle those responsibilities. Because as a family, there's some things that I strongly encourage that you take a moment to kind of look at for yourselves and look at ways that family members can share that responsibility. Maybe it would be a family meeting saying, you know, look, this is a household. We have some expectations, some things that we need to get done. Depending on the age of the children, and those of you, and we're talking about family with children, but we know a lot of people don't necessarily have children at home, but you may have roommates or a partner. You might not be using star charts, but with the younger kids using star charts and allowances with older children to encourage or help motivate them to participate more in helping out around the house. When tasks are not completed, leave them undone and let the consequences fall into place. If people, we all as family members or people who want to keep things again under control, tend to take on more than is maybe our responsibilities, and because you don't want to have those dishes in the sink or can't leave them the rugs to be vacuumed or things to get dusted. But if it would be worth experimenting with leaving the tasks undone and let the consequences fall into place, and then being able to have an example of saying, let's look at what we can do here as a family that once again this or that didn't get done. If you're always the one that's going to do it for everyone, there's no need for other family members to even be aware of how much you're taking on. Another one is lowering your standards. Strive for neat rather than sparkling clean. So again, people will have differences in whether they're a neat freak or whether they're more relaxed in their style at home. In my case, with unusually, a little bit unusual, but maybe not, but my husband is the one who's the neatnik, and I'm the one that he's had to cope with my having a more relaxed style. But luckily, he's lowered his standards, and we both are kind of are doing well with having a neat, if not perfectly sparkling clean house. Use the 10-minute system. That can be a good strategy. Make it kind of fun. A race and set the timer to tidy up. So it can feel overwhelming to say, oh my gosh, there are all these things that have piled up and I don't know where to begin, and you can continue to procrastinate endlessly and it's not going to get the job done. So whether it's a task that you are putting off, or again, if it's a family cooperative event, using a 10-minute system, what can I do for 10 minutes, and that makes it manageable. And enough of those 10-minute tasks and that things will get done. Plan cleaning projects at low-impact times of the day. So again, not scheduling everything during the high-stress time of dinner time followed by kids and their homework, and then bedtime. It's not the time to kind of do major cleaning projects. Being careful where and when you decide to do cleaning projects. There's also, I am one who strongly encourages, if you can afford it, to certainly hire an outside housekeeper for some of those more major projects, for even if it's once a month. As is mentioned, hiring a cleaning service or a cleaning person. So kind of those are some real concrete suggestions of things to do at home. But also a real strong part of that is, again, how you're viewing the situation and how willing you are to share some of those responsibilities. When we talk about identifying multiple demands, I'm very aware that we do have multiple demands. We've got both the parenting and the challenges there, finances, work, time management, elder care. We're the sandwich generation, many of us, where we may be taking care of or aware of an elderly family member who needs help, and then we've got kids that are school age. Hobbies, leisure, social outlets. So all of those fit under demand. So again, here we've got some of the more the givens of, yes, I have parenting responsibilities, and yes, I work, but we need to kind of make sure we're going to be balancing that with the things that are also important to feed our soul, so to speak, or keep our energy going, which includes hobby, leisure, and social outlets. And that kind of brings us to kind of looking at our balance wheel. So in this balance wheel, we've got spiritual, we've got emotional, we've got physical, social, recreational, work, financial, and relationships. So just this, we're not doing a polling question, but taking a moment and kind of starring those areas on your balance wheel that are getting the most attention or taking up the most time. I expect for many of you it's going to be work and financial, because again, those basic needs, we need to have money to be able to pay for the house, our shelter, and our children's needs and our needs. So for understandable reasons, it's very common to have both financial and work taking up most of our time and our attention. Again, my encouragement is that to work hard at getting that more in balance, looking at recreating or starting some activities that you used to enjoy doing, whether it's recreation, taking a walk or a hike or biking, even going to the gym. And going to the gym is a good one, recreation and physical, because again, we need to kind of take care of ourselves in those to have ourselves in better balance. Relationships, it might be reaching out to a friend that you haven't seen for a while and arranging for that coffee date. Social, again, our views can become and our focus can become quite narrow even at home, where we're kind of keeping our head above water and with kids and family needs, but kind of remembering that, there are people that I want to visit with, that we used to enjoy spending time with, and reaching out and reconnecting with those. The emotional balance we've chatted a bit about, and spiritual. And spiritual does not necessarily need to be religion. Spiritual can just be anything that gives you that feeling of awe and wonder or appreciation. Nature, for many people, would be considered spiritual. Getting out, and we live in a beautiful state, and just taking time to notice, being in the present rather than worrying about the future or the past. A key one also is looking at, again, not so easy one, but leaving work at work. We often don't do a separation very well. And many people may be bringing their work home with them. If you're a teacher, you could bring papers home to correct or plans for the next day. If you're any kind of work, sometimes people will bring their briefcase home and they still are working in the evening. So that's another major caution I have, is to kind of, as much as possible, leave work at work literally, but also emotionally and mentally. So even if I'm not bringing home a briefcase to do work at home, I might be carrying home worries or concerns or planning the next day and thinking about it, and which is basically not leaving work at home. So a key question or an important thing to do is to find closure to your workday and do whatever can be done to make a clean transition to home. And also look at how you can let go of thoughts about work. So what I want to also, our next polling question is asking you all, do you have any kind of a ritual or activity or system to bring closure to your workday? And you can take kind of a few minutes to think of what that might be for you. Do you have any kind of a ritual to bring closure to your workday? Kind of, as you think about that, you might not even have something that pops into mind. But if you think about it, maybe you are doing some things that help to leave work at work in order to not carry it home. So taking a few minutes, taking these polling questions, seeing if anybody has any response to that. Do you have a ritual to bring closure to your workday? And the numbers are not coming in on this one.
So 66% of people do not have a ritual, and 36%.
36.
Say yes.
Say yes. Okay, so 66% do not have a ritual or any system for bringing closure to their workday, and 33% do. And I wish, if you were all here in this room, I would certainly probe more to see what is that 33% of people doing to end or bring closure to their workday. Because I do think it can be extremely helpful to, again, do something to help you leave work at work. So some examples for that would be to just save the last 20 to 30 minutes to change gears. And if that seems like too much time, even 10 minutes. What does that mean as far as bringing closure to your workday? It could be making a to-do list for the next day. So then it's not in your mind as you're going home or that night, and you're writing your little list later, or waking up at night writing something down or worrying about something. If you make a to-do list for the next day, you then can set that aside and know you will look at that and be ready for the next day. Tidy up your office space. And that's simple, and for many not so simple, but at least putting things, closing drawers, doing a little bit of putting things in and sorting them in some way to tidy up your office space. One of the hardest and yet simplest things to do, the causes of stress is can be coming into that messy, piled up desk, and in contrast to something that could be, again, a little neat or tidy, or having even some things that are enjoyable to look at, either on your cubby wall or bulletin board or at your desk, which can be things like a picture of a peaceful place where you may have gone on vacation last year, or a beautiful flower from a photo that you took from when you were doing a spring walk. Something that is pleasing to look at and have that visible on your desk can be an easy form of stress reduction that can be handy at work. Pictures of your children, certainly, for many people, that helps as well. Say again that closure to your workday is check your calendar, making sure you know what you're facing the next day, and also taking a moment to remember what you did well. So that's kind of that appreciation that you're giving yourself of, yes, I feel good about what I did today. We're really good at beating ourselves up, and we do that too often, of what you didn't get done or what you, again, the shoulds, or remembering that altercation with a coworker, but taking a moment to think of what you did well and what felt good to you today at work is a nice way to find closure to your workday. And again, the tasks of the day are completed for that day. You can set that aside and then leave your desk, close up, shut down your computer. Create some kind of a leaving ritual. So for some it's as simple as saying good night to your workspace and work. You're saying goodbye. And that time between work and getting home is also important. So when we talk about transition to home, there's some things you can also do. Do a little bit of stretching before leaving work. Do some deep breathing to regenerate. Listen to music in your car as you head home, so that that's not, so that you're kind of changing gear, so to speak. Prepare yourself before you walk into your home, kind of by taking a deep breath and smiling. So even if you're anticipating, again, that whatever meal preparation or the difficult teenager or those kinds of expectations, take that deep breath, kind of be ready to greet the home life that you're going into now. And if necessary, talk about work for a set amount of time. So being very careful for both, again, if it's a married couple or partner, to not have either of you spend too much time doing an ain't it awful or complaining about the day. If it's needed to vent and get it out, then at least trying to limit that for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you let yourself be home. Enjoy your work time and enjoy your home time. So some basic stress reduction tips are talk to someone, eat healthy, get enough sleep, again, find balance with recreation and relaxation, and then look at your self-talk to increase decrease your expectations, have more reasonable expectations, and again, take notice of, have more positive or empowering self-talk. So the ABCs of choice, what do we mean by that? And this can be an easy kind of acronym to help you do your own checklist of what is within your control. The first A is alter. Is it something, when we talk about a stressor, is there something that I can do to change the source of stress? And sometimes it's as simple, if the room is cold, you put on a jacket. If the room is hot, you take off a jacket. If your desk is too close to your neighbor, maybe a slight adjustment might be helpful. If you feel rushed when you get to work every day, maybe leaving a little bit earlier to get there so you have some leisure time, a moment to breathe again before you start your workday. So those are altering choice. Also communication, being assertive or speaking up, again, in a considerate way with your supervisor or coworker. And then remember that kind of looking at the actual behavior versus our expectations or wants for a person's behavior. It is what it is. So we may want things to be different, but the reality is this is what I'm working with right now as far as our coworkers or the work situation. So that's the alter, to change the source of stress. The other A is avoid. avoid a situation, sometimes, when we look at our 3 options of changing stresses, the really 3 areas are, is there anything I can do to change or alter the source of stress? The second one is there anything I can do to change my view or perception of the event? And we've been talking about that. But the third is removing the stressor or avoiding a situation. And where that's usually, in many ways, many times we cannot avoid a situation, it can sometimes be worth looking at. It's okay to say no, or at least say to a supervisor, this project that you just put on my desk, I need to talk to you about how to prioritize what's most important. So that's a version or a way of saying no while working with a more reasonable workload, to get to a more reasonable workload. Delegate, if you're in a position where you can either delegate responsibilities or just like ask for help. I need more help on this project. Can you tell me who else might be able to assist me? Quit, that's the last thing on the list. That has its own stressors, and we don't really go there on leaving a difficult, work situation, but also that a relationship that isn't working well. That's an example of that. And accept. The third A is accept. And that's kind of, again, accepting what is. Right now I'm working in this job. It's having this source of challenges, and I'm looking at how I can accept that and build my strengths and change my perception to be more helpful or hopeful. So that those are the A's of the ABCs of choice. If we went back to the ABCs of choice, the B is also really talking about our beliefs, and that is kind of how we kind of view a situation, and then the C is our choice in what we want to, what changes are within our control, another C, to change or alter. Resiliency is a word that's used a lot, and for good reason, because we're needing to all of us deal with lots of changes in our world and our life. Resiliency really focuses on positive attitudes, which go a long way in helping us cope with the demands of work and personal life. I personally am not a fan of positive thinking per se, but I am a fan of realistic thinking. Again, we don't want to delude ourselves saying the grass will be greener on the other side of the fence. The grass may be gray over there too. But we can say, realistically, I know that I'll be able to handle it, whatever's coming next in my life. You don't have to be born resilient. That's the other thing. It's a learned behavior. You can learn to think and behave as if you were, and learn some ways to kind of increase, again, your capacity and capability and strength to be able to become a more resilient person. When we talk about resiliency and how to develop resiliency, it's some basics. Accept what you cannot change. Put your energy into things that you can control. So that's, again, back to that acceptance. Don't sweat the small stuff. We can get very caught up in the things that don't really make a big difference. So kind of letting go is an important part of, where appropriate, to developing resiliency. Review your interpretation or perception of your situations and avoid the shoulds, oughts, and must statements. And look at crisis at home and work as opportunities for growth and learning. So, we are learning from our every day in our lives, and the crisis and challenges that we have will, again, are helping to build us, and what can we learn from those challenges that we'll be able to carry with us. For some people, stressors can actually build that resiliency. For other people, it can be the straw that breaks the camel's back. But again, the things that we can focus more on is the acceptance. Don't sweat the small stuff. Looking at your self-perception, and being careful of your expectations of yourself and others. And just in general, except most things will always be in process. Again, the one guarantee is things will change. Stress equals change equals stress, and things will always be in process. Use humor to reduce stress. In that, we have a lot of movies out these days and things on TV, and being selective on what you choose to watch or read. So, and finding time to laugh, which is a built-in stress reducer in itself. Try to be positive and upbeat, or at least pay attention to the pleasant situations. We can get kind of a narrow focus and say only the ain't it awful, let me tell you everything that's going wrong in my life. Or we can broaden our view to say, oh my gosh, I saw the first primrose in our front yard and it was beautiful. Paying attention to the things that are all around us. Work and family responsibilities can buffer each other. So if there's a period of time where work is extra stressful, then having your kids' joyful faces, hopefully at home, or some activities that you do with your family can help balance that out, and vice versa. When work is stressful, when family is stressful, work sometimes can be a good buffer where you feel like you've got some control there, or some influence, and and your work family is a source of support. Be flexible, accept that change is the only constant. That is your repetitive message for today. It's not something that you fight against or can resist. Change is the only constant, and we need to learn some healthy ways of managing our stress level and managing change. Self-care builds resiliency. Some basics are getting enough rest, build in relaxation, and make fun a priority. Using the 4x4 breath is kind of breathing into the count of 4, hold to the count of 4, and exhale to the count of 4, hold. And in remembering to exercise, which is still the doctor's prescription as the best thing, better than antidepressants for relieving depression and relieving stress as well. Know your comfort zone, but also don't freak out, and don't gravitate only to that. But be aware of your comfort zone and don't push yourself maybe at times when there's a lot of change going on. Develop your own philosophy of life. Get help when you need it. Healthy people when you need it. Healthy people do seek help. And that's the other thing, is to reach out, whether it's with friends or also being able to use the resources that are available to you, which also include your EAP, which we will be talking about at the end of this webinar. The highlights are, again, to review: recognize your stressors, be aware of your reactions to stress, take care of yourself, positive self-talk, manage stress with questions, think of new ways to do chores, keep in balance, and use coping skills. The resources that are some books that can be helpful in this process. The second one on the list is one that I think is a very practical book with some good, helpful tools. And the title of that is How to Get Control of Your Time in Your Life. And it may be updated. It's been around. It's a book that's been around for a while, but it's a very practical and useful book. There are also online training sessions through your EAP, just like you're doing today with the webinar. There are many other resources through the website, myrvh.com. And then reaching out can also include scheduling an appointment with your Employee Assistance Program, which is an easy thing to do. Again, a no-cost, confidential resource that we encourage you to take advantage of when you need it, or just even if it's like you need a listening ear. You don't need to wait till there's a crisis in your life. Kind of just being able to reach out and use your EAP before it becomes a major crisis. And that's a sign of strength, in my opinion, certainly not any kind of, it's again using your resources. These are practical things that are: join a gym if you can, exercise, we've talked about, hobby, watch a humorous movie, spend time with friends, watch a sports event, treat yourself, And that is a nice thing to do now and then. Yes, it may be an extra cost, but it's well worth it, to a massage, a facial, a staycation to get things done, or just relax and read at home, and again, using your EAP. So just the basics are to schedule an appointment or for 24-hour crisis intervention. Here is your phone number, 1-866-750-1327, or again, the web-based information. And I just want to thank you all for being here today and taking that time, which is a good step of saying, this is something I can do today to take care of myself. I'm going to attend this webinar. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynn, and thank you, everybody, for being here. And just remind everybody to go to MyRVH and click on the training tab. We've been adding some new trainings, and we'll continue to add some new trainings over the next couple of months to kind of fill out the schedule a little bit. Thanks a lot, and have a great day.